again, this amendment here this is exactly on the subject of things like petitioning rights and so forth. The enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. Well, the thing is, they're almost like riddles, some of these. They're almost kind of like contradictions or like catch-22s. They're almost like some of them are kind of written to be contradictive. You see, obviously, if people have got certain rights, then they're not going to want their rights infringed on. The enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others that are retained by the people. Well, which ones are retained? Others are retained by... Some are retained by the people, some aren't. This is basically... That, effectively, what I've highlighted in blue there, this really is the situation... This highlights the situation with Extinction Rebellion. It's an absolute perfect framing of the situation with Extinction Rebellion, you know, because, you know, they're claiming certain rights under the Constitution, well, under political rights, statute law, but to what extent does that, disparage rights which are retained by the people? For example, like when the ambulance is trying to get through, or, you know, people who've got private property or things. But it says rights retained by the people. But it doesn't say businesses, does it? It says retained by the people, but what about corporate entities or businesses and things like that? Aren't persons, are they? They're entities and so forth. But still, it's interesting. It still is interesting that there's a lot more on this than simply what's in the claim of right. But the claim, you see, the thing is, it says you can't be, it says, like, for example, look, like, so let's take into account statute law. So with the claim of right in Scotland, it's like, you know, you can't be imprisoned. So that's one under the Constitution, that's under our statute laws, which is the same as the American Constitution of certain rights. Can't be imprisoned. It says you can't be imprisoned or not be prosecuted, right? But it says that it shall not be construed as to deny or disparage others retained by the people, right? So that means that, for example, the other people have got freedom of speech, right? They've got the freedom of speech of the other people, and they've got the freedom not to have the peace broken, I suppose. It says, but the Constitution, just because you can't be imprisoned, that does not deny anyone else of their rights, does it? You're not denying someone else free speech. So if you committed a crime and if you did have some sort of immunity, at whatever level we're going to argue the immunity extends to, if you did and you couldn't be put imprisoned, that's not taking away someone else's free speech. But what about their things, their belongings and so forth, right? This is why I'm starting to think that, you know, you can be fined, because in that Representation of the People Act, you can be fined but not prosecuted at common law. And at that point, they didn't have imprisonment in there. But I don't know whether this is officials who are involved in management of elections, for example, commit election fraud. I don't know if they're treated separate to the candidate or not, and people signing it. If you are the person doing the petition who's declared and named on the petition, you're the petitioner. For example, when the candidate who's petitioning for election is, for example, having a vehicle that's declared for use for that petition, and they can nominate persons to be representing them and they can, go and give people lifts in the vehicle, but not other people. So also, like, I've just filled a form in for the post to apply for free post for petitions, because I think that there's a right for free post. There is for elections. And on that, you've got to nominate other persons that you want can help you, and assist, because obviously if you're doing like thousands of letters or hundreds, you can't do it all yourself. So who else is authorised to, send them and do it? So you have to nominate people who are engaged, who are helping you. But this is like on the petition. You see, not just people who sign it, support it, but they aren't necessarily the people who are the actual petitioner, if you know what I mean. They're just supporters of the petition. So it's almost like the candidate in the election. People who vote for the candidate aren't the candidate. The candidate's the candidate. But this is when you get into, if you can see what I mean, this is when you're getting into the area of the Crown Prosecution Service. The Crown Prosecution Service have got this assisting offenders, and they can get permissions to take on witnesses who fall under immunity, because they're assisting with the investigation, or assisting the prosecution, or assisting the police, and they get immunities from prosecutions because they're helping that side. This is similar to if you're doing a petition case, who's helping you or not. And this is the same thing for declaring the mail or declaring a vehicle for use, who's helping you do the post. Things like this. This is why, in law, right, this is why you've got freedom of the press, because you're meant to publish it. You're meant to publish like petitions in a newspaper and all this information. This is really why they say, if you know what you're doing properly, get a lawyer. But when you write petitions, you kind of think, well, I'm the one who's writing it myself. But you run into less legal troubles if you do it properly. This is the thing, but the thing is, I did do mine properly when I did my petition, and it didn't help. I declared everything, I wrote everything down, and what the police did and the CPS, they just ignored it and blanked it. So on that occasion, it didn't really do me any favours. Now, if I'd known what I know now when I went to court, on one occasion in Manchester, we got it adjourned actually, but I wouldn't have needed to get it adjourned because I know it off by heart now, the whole legislation and law, which is in use, and the fact that their prosecution was illegal. In fact, illegal canvassing by police officers. You got illegal canvassing by police officers because they're not allowed to get involved in political materials or campaigns at all. And then also all the standing orders of Parliament, which are in use through the Petitions Committee and Class E and F and the legislation and the whole thing. So, and I did put a newspaper advert. But the thing is, when you write, the more clearly you write it and so forth, then the authorities are meant to be, informed and updated. And then, this is what you're saying. If you've got certain persons declaring to assist. But now the thing is, you don't need the newspaper really, because with all the websites, you can publish your own information to the public, and it's publicly available. And also, the Petitions Committee publish the petitions themselves anyway. They're all live on there. It's got its own actually government publishing. But this is just law theory and so forth. You can actually have people assisting. The more and more I read this American Constitution, it explains more and more things from the claim of right, from the petition of right and the right to petition. And I know for certain there are things that the government have been doing wrong. That's for sure. There's quite a lot of things being repealed or changed that it shouldn't have done. And I'm going to do that in a minute. But it makes interesting reading. It's worth getting each of these amendments and really, really kind of like spending a lot of time just reading it and contemplating of things that it's relevant to. Examples of situations, examples of, circumstantial kind of practicality in use and so forth. And then also with... you know, what does it remind you of? You know, when these people were drawing from existing law, you know, drawing from, you know, Tumultuous Petitioning Act and other things like that, were they kind of like making homages or poetic references to certain other things, you know?